You're listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. The interview subject that I've got coming up for you, the artist that I've got prepared for your listening pleasure, it's Chris Hoskin, and he's from a Western Australian-based outfit called Runaway. They've got a brand new EP out. It's out right now. It's called Drinking Alone, and I've got to tell you, it's one of my EPs of the year, one of my releases of the year, I should say. I really want to thank Chris for sharing his opinions and thoughts on so many worthy subject matters through the conversation, it must be said. So here he is, Chris Hoskin from the Western Australian outfit, Runaway. Hey Chris, Andy Mackay-Smith calling. How you going?
Good, mate. How you doing? Sorry about that again.
No, don't worry. No worries whatsoever. What's been happening? It sounded like an important meeting.
It was just I'm going through some legal crap with my employer.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so I had to sort of go in for a meeting, solicitors and shit. But I've just completely forgot about everything else. Like it's just ultra
important thing.
Yeah. So I was in there doing that. So that's pretty fun.
I bet, mate. Yeah. No, fair enough, mate. Well, look, I hope it doesn't put you off your music because you've got an extraordinary. I suppose the EP, Drinking Alone, mate, that's what it is. I mean, all these cuts
man.
Drinking Alone, it sounds like you've got a lot on your plate, but, I mean, legal issues with your employer aside, mate, how have things been going for you since this EP's been released?
Yeah, good, man. We've just been focusing on sort of like the new stuff and like enjoying the release. We had a pretty good gig for the release, which was awesome. The venue was packed out and it was all a good vibe, and that was great. The support acts were awesome, and yeah, we just got a few more gigs in the pipeline coming up, and got band rehearsal tomorrow night actually. So
sweet, yeah. Well, look, I really enjoy the EP. I've got to tell you. In particular, the cut DNAs, or DNAs, however you pronounce it.
Yeah.
I had that one a long time before because Lee sent it through to me. But look, I think ultimately your music could be described as sounding as such. It's a killer mix of laid back but upbeat at the same time, almost 50s sounding music. But you do have some intensity courtesy of the way in which your choruses come on. So there's a bit of testosterone there. I like that about things because the 50s stuff, it gives it lends itself to a lot of melody, but at the same time when your choruses kick in, you can sing along to them and you can also raise a bit of a fist. And you've got a killer hard rock edge, I must say. You know, the drums and percussion sound, man, is just awesome. The way you've managed to get that sound on the EP. Never Know, it's another great song. It's got a great Kings of Leon vibe. And Ready to Know You is probably the song that probably has the biggest quasi-50s vibe going on. And I think if ever Tim Rogers from UMI is looking for a writing partner, I know who he should call. So after I've said all of that, mate, what are your thoughts on the album or the EP? Sorry, and do you agree with my comments?
Oh well, I've never heard it compared to 1950s. I mean, I don't know that I listened to much from the 1950s, so I'm curious to know as to what you're specifically referencing. But I take it as a huge compliment. I'm a bit of a retro man. Like I grew up listening to Elvis Presley and that sort of stuff. I mean, I think that's where my strong sense of melody comes from, and like, you know, simplistic sort of sounds that you can wrap your head around, and it's very familiar, but very organic at the same time, and the testosterone I think is just where I'm at right now in life. You know, I'm on the edge of 30. And I'm going through some hard shit. Like I'm taking on an employer through a legal battle, and I'm dealing with a lot of mental health issues myself and stuff. And this is just where I sort of put everything out on the table. And like my music and my songwriting is kind of my mantra and my meditation and my playground, where I'm like, well, this is what I'm dealing with. I want to sort of present it in a way that's universally acceptable, so that anyone else that may be feeling any sort of trouble or angst or anger or sadness can relate to it. But it's very, very personal stuff that I'm talking about, but I tried to make it open to interpretation, and that's kind of what music is for me. That's sort of what it's always been for me. Kings of Leon is definitely a huge, influence to me, especially like the Aha, Shake Heartbreak stuff, the early stuff of theirs before they turned more commercial. And yeah, the drums, like the grooves and the drums, like Chris Savvy, my best mate since I was like 13 years old, man. We went to high school in Victoria and we both ended up in Perth together. So we can communicate musically without actually saying anything. Like I just lay something down, start singing, and he starts doing his own thing. I mean, a lot of the time, what he starts playing is completely different to what I would think to play, but we make it work.
Okay. Now, look, this is the obvious question because you've mentioned it a couple of times, but what can you share us about the legal battle? Because I understand it's front and centre right about now, but can you share anything about it so that the listener can gain some insight into some of your experiences to date?
Yeah, man. Well, I've been working in the tree industry for 10 years. Like, that's kind of my bread and butter to fuel my musical projects. I'm a tree surgeon by trade, an arborist, or a tree lopper, as some people like to talk. I was involved in an electrical incident next to a power line a little while back. My employer decided to cover it up, even though I needed medical attention because I nearly died. This caused me a lot of stress, anxiety, and trauma. Down the track, I ended up becoming quite a senior role in the occupation. I was the supervisor there, and I looked after a lot of other workers, and a lot of other fellas had the same thing happen. There was other members at my workplace that were getting literally electrocuted and then being told to cover it up by our managers. I confronted my managers. HR was present, and they sort of turned their back on me and sort of tried to push me out of the company. So I ended up having to sort of suit up and get a lawyer. That's where I'm at, man. And it's shit. Like, I've dedicated my whole 20s, the last decade of my life, to a job that I thought was going to be my career. And now I'm kind of like, fuck.
Jesus, yeah. That's obviously that's no good, but...
Nah, man, I've been without income since February this year. So 6 months without a cent to my name, man. I've just been struggling and busking, and the gigs have been keeping me alive, and music's literally been my only vice, man. It's the only thing helping me out right now.
So you've got a good IR lawyer, I take it. You've got someone who really understands the industry?
Yeah. It's all happening, but it's just a long, undulated process, like.
Mate, I don't know. I hope this doesn't sound too insensitive, but I think from a lot of adversity, some great music can become. So, man, I really look forward to the sort of music you release over the next 10 years. If this is any indication of where you're headed to. Because, I to your point earlier, man, I outside of just listening to 50s music, I don't understand the technical construct of what makes 50s music, but I definitely hear it, man. And I thought it was there was bands, I don't know whether you listen to much heavy metal, but there was a band called Scatterbrain about 35 years ago or so. And I've
heard the name.
Yeah, they did a song called Don't Call Me Dude, and in between the choruses on that, which of course had the Don't Call Me Dude thing going all the way through it, it was almost like a 50s style lament through it. And I thought, man, people need to do more of this, and nobody has. And Tim Rogers has done a little bit of it, but he hasn't taken it as far as I think he can. But then I hear it in your music. I hear it in your music, man, and it's something that I think people can relate to because we all grew up watching movies like Back to the Future. Of course, that has a strong 50s element to it. And so it's very nostalgic for everybody is what I'm saying. Like, we all relate to it. Our parents and I'm old enough to have my parents growing up through that era, but probably for yourself, it's your grandparents. So So I think combining combining the need for a cathartic output that you have from what's going on in your personal life with this very obvious bent for writing great music, and because you are a great songsmith at the end of the day, man, I reckon you're going to write some killer cuts over the next 10 years just to tie up the point.
Yeah, man. Well, I think it's less of a choice and more of an obligation as far as I'm concerned, because it's like I do appreciate that I can put songs together, and it's honestly where I go to sort of put everything out, man. If I bottle it up for too long, it's as the Buddhists say, like acknowledge the thought and without judgment release it. And that's kind of what I try and do with the songs. Like, otherwise they just stick with me forever.
Yeah, I just wish those Buddhists had grown up in the West with us. You know what I mean? Like, this is I mean, no judgment here from me, man, but I'm one of my good mates is Hare Krishna. I've been blessed as a Hare Krishna. I'm Catholic, but I still take on a lot of these beliefs, and, you know, so I understand it, man. But, man, they come from when I say simple societies, compared to ours, simple societies, simplistic societies.
It's beautiful. It's so beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, and I just wish that, like, this is why I like the Krishna side of things, because Prabhu, I think his name's Prabhu Sir, he had to go to the US and had to basically deal with poverty to begin with before he could spread his message, and he didn't lose faith through that process. And I think, like, that's why I quite like that message through the Krishna spirit, because it is something that's born, like, the message doesn't come from the West, but it was born from experience in a Western society in New York.
Yeah.
So
I understand that.
It acknowledges all of the bullshit and hardship that we have to deal with here, because from the outside looking in, we've got it made, but there's all these psychological pressures, like what you're talking about. You've been put under, from what you tell me, man, you've been told to lie, and you've been told to ignore what actually happened to you. And that's bullshit.
Pretty much, yeah.
This is a part of your life's journey, and almost losing your life is hardly something to just sort of gloss over.
Yeah, man. Well, receiving electric shock with 22,000 volts is never fun. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I wouldn't know what it feels like, man, but I can almost just from what I understand, having that much voltage through you, man, is you probably went into a state of shock afterwards. I take it, did you?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a little while down the track now, man, and I still shudder at the thought, man. Like, there's people dying from the same injuries that I incurred, and it freaks me out, man. I'm just like, that could have been me, you know what I mean? And that is post-traumatic stress disorder. So
absolutely, it is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, look, this EP, I love EPs. I've got to tell you, because they give listeners with less of an attention span than I do an opportunity to focus on an artist's body of work within 5 or 6 songs. Was that important to you, or did you really want to make an album?
Look, when I first stepped into the studio last year, so it was over 12 months ago now we first started, I had a bit more money to chuck around, and we had started, like, sort of recording a lot. Like, there's a lot of bones and sort of skeletons of other songs in there that were sort of making it to be like a bigger project than what it ended up being. Financial reasons, it sort of ended up being an EP instead of an LP. But I think it's sort of good. It's definitely, for more reasons than one, it's a big reflection of where I'm at right now in life. You know what I mean? And I think the songs definitely tie in together unintentionally. But I have this weird thing where I sort of just go into my subconscious, and often I'll just sort of conscious stream of thoughts, just write lyrics out to sounds that pop up in my head and melodies, and sing them along without necessarily knowing what they mean. And then 2 weeks or a month down the track, something will happen, and I'll be like, this is exactly what I was singing about. Like, this is exactly what I was writing about earlier on. So it's, I think an EP is a body of work that makes it easier for people with short attention spans to grab onto, and that's the day and age we live in, man. We live in the age of Spotify. I mean, like, so I think albums these days are more of a, it's an egotistical thing for me anyway. I just wanted to put an album out, but I'm happy that we ended up doing an EP.
I think it's a really smart move in 2019 for a number of reasons, and the most obvious reason is the streaming platforms don't lend themselves to albums. Okay, and I've talked a lot about this in the podcast series, and I'm an album man myself, but I can appreciate that EPs are more effective. And unless you're an established band, I've got to say, man, for the most part, I don't really see a lot of point in albums. I think you've got to be established before you've got a fan base that's going to spend that kind of time with you. And that's what I really appreciate about a lot of the Firestarter artists that I interview, is that they are EPs. Or sometimes they're even singles, man, 1 or 2 singles. And I really find that I can focus on the nuances of an artist's music, because an album, hard rock and heavy metal tends to lend itself to albums, but everything else tends to lend itself, urban, pop, roots, acoustic, everything else except for hard rock and heavy metal tends to lend itself specifically to EP. So I'm really glad you've taken that step. And the thing is, it'll give you an opportunity to build your audience and get through what you're experiencing right now. And these songs can kind of marinate for a period of time.
Yeah, that's it. I'm enjoying the marination process. They've been sitting there, stewing around, and I've gone back to them, listened to them, and I know a lot of my friends are enjoying them, so that's good to know.
Have you had an opportunity to perform a lot?
Yeah, we've played a lot this year and a lot last year. We haven't played since the single launch, the EP launch at the start of August. So that's not really. We haven't.
That's not too far away. Yeah.
I don't even know where we are anymore. Yeah, we've done the EP launch at the start of August, and then we've got 2 gigs coming up in next week, so that's pretty cool. But gigging, like performing for me, not so much now, but when I sort of first ventured into music, performing was the main thing for me. Like I was never really a recording artist. Like I love being on stage and sort of just putting it all out there and putting 100% of myself into performing. Like that's me. That's what I always loved in it. But as I've sort of matured in my songwriting, I've started to really, really appreciate the creative process a lot more, and putting songs together, and they're finding their meaning to myself and that sort of thing. Like, so yeah, I don't know. I really enjoy the relationship I have with music because it's evolved a lot over time.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, look, I can. There's a maturity to the construction of your songs that belies your experience, if you don't mind me saying. Okay, and what I mean by that is that if you're in your late 20s, almost in your 30s, how long have you been making music? It's about 15 years or so. Fair enough. That's long enough to be able to craft music, great music like you have. But I'm hearing stuff that has a bit of an echo, and bear with me here whilst I make the point, to the great Roy Orbison. And I guess, you know what I'm coming from with it all? And I
mean, he's a hero of mine, so...
There you go, and I love Roy Orbison. I can't understand how people can't get into him these days. It's I've had a few conversations online with people who've said they don't rate the Big O, and I don't know how you can not. He's a wonderful
he's great.
artist. Yeah, he's the thing that I love about his music that you do really well is that there's enough space in the music for you to enjoy it. It's not all coming at you really quickly. In other words, you don't condense your ideas. You don't compress your ideas.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I'm pretty conscious of. I mean, I feel like a lot of the time, unless there's like noise coming out of my mouth, I'm not making a big enough impact. But then it's after I listen back to them, I'm like, and listen to other people's music too, I'm like, you need to give space for ideas to sort of breathe. Like you can't just introduce a concept to someone in a sentence and then expect them to grasp it and run with it with you through the journey of the song. You need to do it in stages, like start a story, introduce the topic, and let everyone wrap their head around it before you start taking them on the journey after the topic started. And that's what I try and do.
That's awesome, man. No, that's really cool because that's what I'm hearing. I'm so glad you mentioned that because that's what I'm hearing. And too often do I listen to new music where all of these great ideas come at you very quickly, but then there's a lot of mediocre ideas at the same time. And it's like, you've just got to slow down a little bit, take a deep breath, maybe have a beer or smoke something, whatever you do, and just let it marinate. Exactly what we said before, let it base for a bit. That's a good word, let it base for a bit. And maybe some different ideas will come out of it. Maybe there's 2 great songs in this one rather than just the one,
that's it, man.
Yeah, you continue, mate, yeah.
Oh no, that's like I've actually recently just started listening to podcasts. Like I've never really taken the time to listen to them, but I listen to them all the time now. Especially the Joe Rogan podcast and all that stuff. And like a lot of the podcasts that I listen to, one thing that they always say is like, this is the mission of the podcast. Like the mission of this podcast is to get this point across. And I really, really appreciate that because I think my old music, I mean, I've got an EP that was released 5 years ago before this one, and there's a lot of ideas in that EP too, but sometimes there's more than one idea in a song and it can get quite convoluted. And I feel like when I write a song these days, it's with a mission. So I set out to tell a story, and if my mind and lyrics start going somewhere else, I sort of try to stop it and be like, well, does this assist the story? Come back to the point, because you want to get that concise point across. And as Elvis and as Roy Orbison always did, but all their songs make sense, and that makes them more relatable.
Yeah, mate, you made a couple of really good points in there, and one of which I'll say is that Joe Rogan's the reason I've got a podcast. From the perspective that 4 or 5 years ago, I was working for Telstra, and I was travelling up and down the coast of Queensland, between Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, Brisbane and Cairns, and between him and Jamie Jaster from Hatebreed, that's all I was. And Chris Jericho, I might add as well, a few others.
Yeah,
but,
Chris Jericho.
Yeah, they're the main two, but Chris Jericho sort of added for spice. But Joe Rogan, man, he's just the master. I mean,
he's a brilliant man.
Who better to emulate than the great man himself? I mean, from the perspective that he can have a conversation and remove himself from having an opinion but still ask questions. Holy shit, man, he's the master at that. You know, the thing about his podcast series is that you never get the sense that whilst he's central to it, you never get the sense that he's imposing himself on it. You know,
that's it. He lacks the judgment, eh? Like he lets the judgment go.
Yo, he's curious. That's a really good point. He's curious, and he's constantly removed the judgment and he's replaced it with curiosity. So if someone says something that he disagrees with, he says something very ordinary like "How so?" or "Why is that?" But then he's thinking about why he disagrees with it, and he's quite prepared to change his position mid-conversation. And I think we all do that because he said it many times. We're all rooted in having an opinion that seems to be nailed to the ground. Why is that? Why is that? We shouldn't be like that.
It's society, man. Like society's just turned into this black and white. That's it. There's no grey. Everyone has to be perfect, and everyone has to be this cookie cutter figure. And if you're not, you're in the grey, and that grey doesn't get praise. That grey doesn't get likes. That grey doesn't get comments. Nothing like that. It's either black or white. It's either beautiful and positive, or it's either disgustingly horrible, and there's nothing in the middle.
Mm. Yeah, I look with the way politics has gone these days. It's so toxic, isn't it? I mean, I just look at the way people attack each other online, and I've got to say they're more often than not from the left onto the right.
Yeah, man.
It's just horrible what I see people doing to other people, and with a mission of deplatforming and getting people with an opinion they don't agree with losing their jobs. I saw Andy Ngo. I mean, we're in a ridiculous position in 2019 where, I just want to be clear about this, a gay immigrant. So if you're talking about the left's identity politics right up there, a gay immigrant, an Asian immigrant, or maybe he was the children of immigrants, got beaten senseless, got a brain, I think it was a brain hemorrhage, I think I might be right in saying, from an Antifa. Going there as a journalist to cover an Antifa, what do you call it? Protest? I suppose you'd call it that. It's really I think you'd more call it, a nuisance, a disruption. But he got beaten senseless, and then was told by the police to walk back into the fray. I think I'm right in saying that. I hope I am anyway. But the point is he went on Joe's podcast afterwards and talked about how he had bleeding on the brain or something. And I'm thinking, how on earth have we got to this fucking point where we want to beat the living daylights out of people for having a different opinion to us? I don't understand. It's like, as you said before, like everyone, you look at us from the outside and we got it fucking made. You know what I mean? Like society is now the amount of information and technology that we have access to, and still we have this basic incarnate like medieval violence still existing in our world. It doesn't make any sense. Like, it's crazy, man. I think that's just, it's human nature at a base level, and these people that still act like this just aren't willing and ready to evolve, and it's happening. So, but you know what I think, mate? You know what I think, Chris, is the real issue here? Mental illness. I think that's the real issue, and I think mental illness manifests as this protest advocacy. This so-called that's what it is, protest advocacy, but it's really mental illness. And they latch on to these themes and these ideas, but it's not really about that. Like, we had these idiots over here on William Jolly Bridge in Brisbane protesting. Of course, they're protesting against the Adani mine. I understand anybody's right to protest. We live in a democracy and you can do that, but think, you dickheads, okay? They held up an ambulance. Who knows who was in that ambulance that needed help? Okay, they're travelling to the most. I can't remember the name. I'm from the Gold Coast, so I can't remember the name of the hospital that's nearby there. God knows I've been to it a few times myself, but I can't remember it now for the sake of the conversation. But it's in Milton there, so it's just across the bloody road from the bridge there, and they're stopping it. Like, pick your bloody targets, you idiots. Okay, there are people that need assistance, and they aren't people that are trying to get to work. These are people that need hospitals, maybe police assistance, this sort of thing, and you're stopping them from getting that. Okay, so whilst you might have...
To prove a point that's quite convoluted.
Oh, of course it is. They don't know all the facts. Plus, my suspicion, more than that, my own opinion, I must say, is that they just want to see themselves on TV. These idiots. You know, these abseiling off the bridge.
Potentially.
I mean, but realistically, there are avenues that you can protest. You can make your point through protest, and you can be very effective without doing that. Okay, you don't need to do that to hold up regular people, and that's my point about wanting just to appear on TV and be in the public eye. Because what better way to do it than to hold up people who are trying to get across the only means to cross a river than to hold up a bridge? And it's not just that; they've done it a few times in Brisbane now, and I just think, you know, I know somebody who knows one of the guys, and he's told me straight up, very strange character.
Yeah, righto, yeah.
That glued himself to a zebra crossing in Brisbane City, you know, so as though the cars couldn't get past, and held up all of the cars. And my point is, and I don't know this for a fact, I'm only saying what my opinion is, I think a lot of it is rooted in mental illness. I
think you're probably correct, man.
Man, they're not going through what you're going through. What you're going through is very real, very personal, and very pertinent. What they're going through is something that they're projecting onto society, and they're trying to manipulate for their own personal means, as I say, which ultimately is about getting attention. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel about it.
No, man, I understand. I don't know these people, and I don't know what they're personally going through. I understand that sometimes the way people try and protest is pretty ludicrous, and it's more damage than it is, you know, productive. But as I was saying earlier, like, it's what we live in now. We live in the ludicrous. You know what I mean? As I said, like, with all the social media and TV coverage, like, everyone wants to be doing big things. You know, like, nothing small amounts to anything anymore. We live in the age of pop stars and superstars, and everyone is a pop star and a superstar now. So,
mate, let's bring it back to the music, the more positive thing. Because I do think, look, all of these things are important points to talk about. There's no two ways about it. I think they're necessary points to talk about for everyday, ordinary Australians, like we obviously are. But, I mean, the thing is that you're a bit extraordinary from the perspective that you have this wonderful EP, Drinking Alone. And my feelings on it are that a lot of people need to hear this. So the promotional side of things.
We're talking about mental health, man. I mean, that's what the whole EP is about for me. Like, it's been the struggles of my mental health in the last 12 months, all in 5 tracks. You know what I mean? And I say that on stage. Like, Drinking Alone to me is kind of a shout out to men's mental health. Like, not to be sexist, but a lot of there's still those big stigmas about men and not talking about their issues.
Yeah.
I mean, at the EP launch, we had about 100 men from the Navy in the bar there, like, all in front of me. And when I was on stage, and I said, "Look, guys, I know you guys are all in the forces and that. This song's called Drinking Alone, and it's about being alone and being in a pretty shit spot and being in a predicament that you feel trapped in, and drinking alone." I just want to say, like, everyone should raise their glasses, and if there's anyone here that is drinking alone, like, turn to your left and make a friend. Like, no one should be drinking alone. So that's kind of my mission in this EP, is to raise awareness for mental health.
That's awesome, brother, because something that's crossed over or glossed over a lot. I'm the father of 2 daughters, right? So I'm acutely aware of all of the work there is out there, or the options there are for women out there these days. Very few for men.
Yeah.
And very few for straight hetero men, if you know what I'm saying. Like, just regular blokes, you know what I mean? Like you and I, from the sounds of things. Like, very few options for us, to be frank, mate, outside of Drinking Alone. I love this EP title, now that you're given that context, because God knows I've done it enough. drinking alone.
Yeah, man.
I think a lot of people have, man.
I've done it a lot. I've spent a lot of nights these last 12 months drinking alone, man, just sitting there looking at a bottle, looking at a glass thinking, or a can or a bottle, just thinking, what the fuck, how have I ended up here? Like, what's going on? Like, why am I here? What can I do about it? And it's all these thoughts that sort of manifest into these songs for me, and that's my mission. Like that's why I write them, for myself initially, but then when I see people enjoying them and connecting to the music, I just want to make it quite clear that this is what I'm singing about. Like I'm not going to fucking hide the fact. It's straight up. I've got anxiety and depression. I've had it all my life. If anyone else is struggling with shit, like, come and chat to me. Like, I'm singing it to you right now. I'm literally giving you a counselling session.
Have you had anybody come up to you afterwards and talk to you about things?
Yeah, well, we just got booked for someone else's single launch, and it was this local chick in a band called Sergeant Holker, and she's just like, I've been listening to this EP, and now just after you announced it about men's mental health and like drinking alone and that, she's like, it all makes sense to me now. She's like, I understand completely what you're talking about, and it's really beautiful. She's like, the guys in my band relate to everything that you've just said, and we really would like you to come play for us. So like, she booked us on the sole basis that she completely related to the message I was trying to sort of get across.
I mean, that's awesome, and it's awesome coming from a woman that you've got that, from the perspective that, I've spoken to, I've spoken to a lot of people, believe me. Not every interview goes to air, let me tell you. And sometimes I think that there's just this identity political thing where it's like, if you're a man, you've got it made, you've got every advantage that society can throw to you, and if you can't handle it, you're a weak prick. And I'm not saying that's what they've said. I'm not saying that's what anybody said. I'm saying that's the impression that I've formed. Okay, and I'm allowed my opinion. So,
of course.
And I've heard that. So it's so cool that a woman has reached out to you and thought, you know what, let's do this. And it obviously speaks volumes about her attitude.
Yeah, 100%. And in that moment, I really appreciated her saying what she was saying, and it was good that she understood what I was trying to get across. I mean, it can be quite hidden and subtle in the context of a song, just as a song. But when the songwriter directly is saying to you, look, this is my personal experiences, and I understand that it's a worldwide thing, and it's an epidemic, man. Like, this is something we should be talking about.
Oh, I think men's mental health, mate, has just been glossed over. Absolutely, it's just been you've been told that you're a cis white male or whatever, and well, that's exactly the point, though. You can be anything, but you're told that you're a cis white male, and just shut up and deal with it, because you've already got all of society's advantages. But holy shit, mate! I mean, I've worked myself so hard in a job previous to what I'm doing right now. I'm at uni these days, but when I was at Telstra, I worked so hard, I worked myself into a hospital bed. There's no support networks, and that was because I've got a condition called ulcerative colitis, which is very similar to Crohn's disease. And I wasn't taking my meds because I was travelling so much with it. I was forgetting to take my medication with me. And, man, I was stressed to the max, but I wasn't miserable. I loved my job, but I reached a point where I realised I couldn't do it anymore. Money was great,
man. No,
everything was there, but I just realised I couldn't do it anymore, because I used to say I want to be tackled by my kids, but these days I say I want to be tackled by my grandkids. You know what I mean when I say that?
Yeah, you want to be around, man. You want to stick around.
Yeah, but I want to have quality of life too. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So, you're right, and I want to have quality of life. And if I don't have quality of life, I don't see the bloody point. I've got. I know enough people that, I've got debilitating illnesses that have told me what they wish they had. And I can
No, man, I understand that.
They're not wishing they won the lottery, mate. They just wish that they had their full facilities back.
Yeah, man. I've got a lot of friends that are, very successful financially in this world, and I fuck good on them, man. Like, good on them. But that's not my main priority anymore, man. Like, I see a lot of people just living for excess, like working, buy a house, working, buy another house, working, buy a third house. Like, why the fuck do you need so many houses? Like, you don't need all this shit. And at the end of the day, like, how's your mental health? Like, how's your brain going? Because it's working in overtime. Like, give it some time. Like, And that's kind of my priority right now. Just sort of getting back to, as we mentioned earlier, the Buddhist philosophies, man. Like, I really, really, really see eye to eye with a lot of the stuff that they came up with, like, thousands and thousands of years ago.
Yeah. I get you, mate. It's, yeah, and look, the thing that, you know, no matter how bad things can potentially get, okay, for you, always console yourself, mate. You're a wonderful songwriter. You've got a wonderful ability to compile your emotions and your thoughts into song. And that's always meaningful, because throughout history, no matter how the songs sound, mate, we've all human beings, right back when we were hunter-gatherers, we've always related to song. So it's a tremendous skill that you've been blessed with, a tremendous talent that you've been blessed with. And I think my own take on things, mate, is that regardless of, you know, whatever pitfalls you may face and whatever difficulties you may have to overcome in life, as long as you can see the silver lining and the cloud of your negative experience is that you've got this wonderful talent that you've been blessed with, mate. Just keep on creating music, because it's going to mean a lot to people. You probably don't even realise that, mate, but people will listen to your music and they don't know anything about you. They don't know anything about your background. They're probably in Iceland or Denmark or God knows where, but they listen to your music and you've made their day better because you're a songwriter.
No, man, I appreciate that a lot. As I said, like, it's entirely just my meditation for myself. Like, I just hope that it affects people the way a lot of songs that I've heard in my lifetime when I've been feeling pretty crap about things have affected me. Like, they've always helped me. Music is really good that way.
Mate, you've got it in you. There's no doubt. You know, as Wayne Bennett said, I know you probably don't know who that is, being from Perth, but you know, Wayne Bennett, the old Brisbane Broncos coach, now South Sydney coach, he always said, don't die with the music in you. You know, and I think he borrowed that quote. That's with the title of his first book. And, mate, you're not. Not that I want you to die anytime soon. Of course I don't. But the point is that you've got this wonderful EP under your belt already. I have a feeling, mate, that you're a career songwriter, mate. You'll be doing this until you're Leonard Cohen's age.
Yeah, potentially. I hope so. It's getting harder and harder to make a living off it, but I don't. I just do it for self-fulfillment, man, and I just hope that one day, like, the story's there, you know, in the music.
All right, mate. Well, before I let you go, tell the listener, where can they get a hold of your music? How can they get in touch with you?
So they can stream it anywhere. Like, it's on Spotify and iTunes and Apple Play and all that. You can come to any of our gigs and get physical copies of the stuff. We are playing next at... Where are we playing? On the 31st of August. Yep, 31st of August. That's at Clancy's in Fremantle. And then we're playing again on the 5th of September at the Solar Room in Fremantle as well. And you can just, like, if anyone wants to chat to me about any of the things that we discussed tonight on the podcast, like, feel free to, like, just hit up Instagram or the Facebook page, or there's an email there as well.
Good on you, Chris. All right, look, what I'll do from here is, mate, I'm comfortable with everything we've spoken about if you are, so I'm just going to release it as it is.
Yeah, man.
I think people need to hear this, to be honest with you. I think there's a lot of really important points we've spoken about outside of the music, and it's really important to hear a musician talk about these things. So I want to thank you very much for your candour and frankness through the conversation. But, mate, I'll just link you in. Do you want me to send it to you on text, like the link for the podcast episode on text? I'll probably do it tomorrow. It's 10... bit after almost 11 o'clock here, mate, so I might do it tomorrow morning or thereabouts.
Yeah, sweet, man.
I'll send it
Sounds
to you via
good.
text, mate. That's probably the easiest way to do it.
No, I appreciate it, man. You're a really good host, eh? You very emotively activate conversations. It's good.
Thank you, mate. Well, you've got a great EP here. I know you're an excellent musician. Just keep on. I get you going through some shit right now, but please never give up on the music, because people need to hear what you're doing.
No, man, as I said, it's not a choice. If I gave up on it, I'd just sort of stop breathing a little bit, I think.
I get it. Believe me, I'm a muso myself, so I understand. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, good luck to you, mate. And if ever you want to chat again, just reach out.
Yeah, man. Cheers. I appreciate it. I will do.
No worries, mate. Good luck with it all.
See you, mate.
Thanks a lot. Catch ya. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. That interview subject was Chris Hoskin from the Western Australian-based outfit Jack Runaway. Thanks so much for listening.